I'm finally getting to the last stages of the accident repair after hitting a deer right here, unfortunately, sadly, which is where the crash sensors are. So all the internal work's done with the seat belts and the airbags, which all triggered. Today it's going to be bumper change. I bought a second-hand one from EV Breakers, painted it into the right colour with the wing as well, because that got damaged too, and it's much quicker and easier just to change them both at once. So here goes. So the bumper replacement on the Nissan Leaf, this is one of those jobs where you don't actually have to disconnect the 12-volt battery. But anyway, easiest done on a ramp, because we've got to get to a whole load of bolts down underneath here where the bumper attaches to the various under trays and so on. So I'm going to do it on a ramp, but it's quite feasible to do it just on some axle stands with the front up in the air. But anyway, first job is to remove all the clips holding this plastic trim in position, and then we're going to do the same for the plastic trim in here. It's just the usual lift the dot trim clips. These usually fail quite regularly, so I carry plenty in stock and actually buy these ones in from Romix, who are an aftermarket trim company. Oh, where's it gone? There it is. And these are the ones that I use. They fit multiple vehicles, but I get through hundreds on the various Leafs because they fit basically everywhere that this type of clip is used. Everything that you see that's not bumper coloured, so fog lights, this chrome trim that goes behind the number plate and the plinth that it sits on, etc. This all has to be removed, but I'm going to take the bumper off first because the fixings are in from behind and it's much easier to do on a little table which I've set up behind the car. I like to use these little plastic press to close bags for keeping all the fastenings in, so that I can keep all the fastenings for a particular item with that item. So I gather them all in the tray, pop them in the bag when I put it to one side, then it's all ready for reassembly later. With this one being a top spec model, it's got the front camera in the bottom of the emblem here, which wires through inside the flap here and goes through the plastic housing that we're taking off. But this is very straightforward because there's a connector here. I can undo that and then just clear this trim out of the way. Once the plastic trims are off, you can see there's two remaining clips, which I've previously marked their positions with a bit of Tipp-Ex. These two clips have to go back on when the bumper gets refitted before any of the trims go on. They just hide underneath the top trims, but well worth not forgetting. There's also a couple of 10mm headed bolts that go through the bumper into the kind of charge port support frame, so those have to come out too. You can see now how the top of the bumper is all free. So we've now got to focus on the trims under here. Just inside here, inside the wheel arch, there's a 10mm headed bolt which holds it to the retaining clip on the wing, where it actually attaches to the wing. Excuse the tape, but you'll see what I mean later. There's a plastic trim that it just clips onto, and the trim is bolted and clipped to the wing. Much more easy to understand once you see the later pictures. So the wheel arch liner in this car has been damaged. It's got all sorts of splits and things underneath there. So first job is to take off the front wheel, and then I can remove my aftermarket mud flaps, and then there's an assortment of clips holding the wheel arch liner in, but I'll guide you through it. This is particularly useful to know when you're changing an ABS sensor, because that hides up here between the liner and the front wing. So while the wheel's off, it gives us a good chance to check the brake pads, the discs, and importantly the compliance bushes, which on this one are beginning to fail. This has done about 130,000 kilometers since these arms were fitted, so I'll pop a new pair of arms into this one while it's in the workshop, and then it's all good to go. The ball joints are probably acceptable, but because it's a known failure point, I just put a new set of arms on. While I'm here, I also do anti-roll bar links because they can also get very rattly. So that's one for a little bit further down the road as I get more into it. Just got to focus on the bolts that hold it here to the front subframe. You can see how some of these bolts that also hold on these air deflectors are also going into the wheel arch liner. So we'll just whip those out and then we're away. And for the want of removing the 5 bolts that hold these air deflectors on each side, I like to just drop these off because it makes the access so much better for removing both the wheel arch liner front and the actual bumper itself. When everything's out of the way, there's just one last little clip. Obviously there's a matching one on the other side, much easier to see with the under tray removed. Of course, while I'm here, also do the diff oil on principle. So take this last one out and then we're ready to pull the plastic wheel arch liner out. So as with the back of this wheel arch liner, I've got all the mountings removed from the front now. So it's just a case of unhooking it from behind the bumper and the wheel arch itself here, and then it'll just pull down easily. And then with the last of the retainers withdrawn and it's all unclipped from behind the wheel arch lip and the bumper lip, the plastic wheel arch liner literally just drops down and split in the middle, so it comes off nice and easily. And you can see here there's a windscreen washer pipe, plenty of wiring, and the ABS sensor which goes down here into the back of the hub. But this goes up behind the wheel arch liner here to the multi-plug. I'm showing you this one because I've had to change a few of these. Always the right hand front for some reason. Okay, and now with the wheel arch liner removed, it's easy to see the 10mm bolt that we have to remove to release the corner of the bumper from the wing. There's one the same the other side, so I'll just have those off, and then that's pretty much it. So for the front bumper removal, if you're not taking the wheel arch liner right out, it's actually possible just to unbolt it down the bottom here, make sure it's got some play, and then by pulling this corner back, you can just see there the head of the bolt that's holding the corner of the bumper in. There's a plastic trim like this which is fitted to the front edge of the wing. The bumper just clips onto this now that we've removed the bottom bolt. This bracket itself, I've got a replacement because the one on this wing is broken, but this bracket itself just clips into the inner wing with these two, and then a couple of bolts going through the clips to hold it really securely. But the bumper literally just pulls away from this after you're done, like that. And then the other side. Seems a bit brutal, but it does the job. There we go, pulled away. The bumper's actually trying to fall off now, but I've still got to undo the wiring to the 2 front fog lights before I let it come down. So there's these 2 multi-plugs that go onto the back of the fog light, daytime running light assemblies. Once those are unclipped, you can just drop the bumper down, and in this case, strip everything off and chuck away the remains. So once the bumper's off, it's easy to see the mountings. This was where we had to take the screw out from the front bumper earlier. This plastic trim is just held, secured in place with 2 bolts. There's a bolt here. There's a series of bolts underneath the headlamp here. There's a couple of bolts down at the bottom of the inner wing here, but this is worth noting. These inner wings always fill up with muck, so it's often worth just freeing off the wheel arch liner the other side and just removing the muck. This rubber bung will pull out and we'll undo the indicator repeater connector, and then we'll go up to the top and we'll move on from there. So when it comes to time to refit the bumper, it can literally just be pushed on from the front at the top here, and then we'll clip on to the bracket on the wing on the headlight. It'll line up over the top of the charging port here, and then the other headlight and the other wing, it will clip on there to stay steady. But of course, once it's on, we can put these 2 retaining clips in that we spotted earlier that go on before anything else, any of the other covers up here. So that should be very straightforward. I should go and get that and we'll see how it works. So there we go. The bumper's clipped into the wing mounts here, the headlamp mounts both sides, and I've put these 2 retaining clips on which will stop it from slipping anywhere while we look at refitting the various bolts around here. and then obviously the innards for the charge flap and so on.